That's, of course, an enormous question. Why is art an important part of a child's education? I guess it's such a great balance to the curriculum subjects which need such a linear and almost like prescribed approach to success. For example, in Key Stage 1, in order to do well at the end of Year 2, as all teachers who teach Year 2 will know in England at any rate, they are required to do the statutory attainment tests, the SATs. Now, to achieve good results in SATs, which all schools and parents want, of course, you need to teach in a very organised, a very structured and very prescribed way. Of course, children are not always structured and not always prescribed and are not always organised in the way they think. And art, which involves so much independent choice and creativity, I think provides a lovely balance to a school curriculum. And that's probably the most important reason why I would include it in my classes as much as I could, given all the other things that I need to make sure I teach in a Key Stage 1 class. I think, first of all, the individuality of each child. Years and years ago, before the national curriculum came in, those of you who are listening to this may be old enough to remember in the 70s and 80s, you might go into a classroom and find, for example, 30 identical looking pieces of work. So what the children had done, they'd gone through a process, adult-led, and often very enjoyable, but the end product was, for example, just before Christmas, 30 identical Father Christmases. Now, for me, the most important thing about art is the fact that a class of 30 children, each one is as different one from another as you could possibly imagine, and that art allows you to celebrate that individuality. When we first brought out Teaching Art at Key Stage 1 in 1993, we had a motto which went on the back, which was, you don't need to be good at art to teach it well. So my top tip is, trust your good teaching judgment. And think about art not as a mystery, not as an esoteric wonder. You don't have to have talent to be able to help your children do beautiful artworks. Just follow through a certain kind of logical planning and thinking like you would for any other subject, which is in fact why we have produced this book again, because I think the lessons in the book, the structures on shape, pattern, space, colour, etc., are ways in which a non-professional teacher, a non-professional artist teacher, can actually structure ideas in a way which just makes them trust their teaching judgment. One of my biggest favourites is working on something like imaginary buildings, where architecture, where first of all we started from observation, so we've actually collected lots of ideas about buildings from around the school, around the locality, buildings that they know, and then we look at buildings from other cultures. Gradually they realise that buildings are wondrous, and then once we've got all that kind of information and enthusiasm inside them, they can actually create this imaginary building of their own. They become architects, and they can put influences together from not only their own experience but also from other cultures to create the most wondrous imaginative architectural forms. I think that's my favourite. Yeah, I think one of the biggest reluctance that younger children have is, the primary age child is the fact that art has to look perfect. They're really worried about making mistakes, and some children find it a huge barrier to actually explore and experiment, to become open-minded, to take risks. And probably it's encouraging them to see art as an open-ended, open-minded activity where risk-taking is essential. And if we can help them understand that, they relax a lot more. Going to exhibitions, I mean, I've done that all my life. I trained as an artist, and being aware of visual culture, visiting museums and art galleries whenever I get a chance, just because you always see something that sparks off an idea, and even if you're not an art aficionado, an expert or an enthusiast, if you do find the time to go and look at something, you will probably find a spark of inspiration there. It always works for me anyway. Helping children in the lesson understand that their own angle on what you've presented with them is valued. Because if you set the structure so tightly that they're not able to step outside of it, the children aren't as inspired or enthused as if you can open up the lesson so that you have a good structure, so you feel that the lesson is going in the direction you want it to, but that within that structure the individual children feel free to create and express their own thoughts and ideas. Talking about it, or the organisation, you know, we've just been working today, you probably see from my hands, upstairs with the year twos with clay, and the little tip is that you have a lump of clay, and from time to time you dab the lump of clay on the table to hoover up all the little bits, so that from time to time everybody stops, everybody does a mini clear up, so that at the end of the afternoon it's not quite as problematic. It's lots of little, just like a good artist or designer works in their studio. Every now and again you have a little tidy up, you get yourself organised again before you start working. If your children in your class can get themselves used to that, you'll find it a lot less stressful doing these mega creative activities.